Mel, we have literally become a national security state, and it began in 1947. Actually, it began in 1913 when they created the Federal Reserve.
Correct.
And they did that, what is it, midnight, 3 days before Christmas, for God's sake? And
correct.
They voted in and created this nightmare we call the National, or the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, has been responsible for this recent economic disaster we've all been through. And we're not out of it yet. Now,
the creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, my God, man, you've done your homework. Now, the average person out there may not have an idea of what really has been going on, but in 1947, an interesting year that, not only Roswell, but a whole bunch of other things began to happen, they created the National Security Agency. They signed the National Security Act. They created the Central Intelligence Agency, and we signed a pact with the United Kingdom called the UKUSA Pact, UK-USA, which has bound the British and us together since 1947 into a joint national security state. And national security is the bottom line, you see. When they passed the Freedom of Information Act a few years ago, there were a lot of us. Peter Gersten is a friend of mine who thought, well, the Freedom of Information Act, boy, we can begin to get some answers now. Well, nonsense. Every time that anybody would get close to some true answers about some very sensitive subjects, the government would come up with, well, that's national security, and we can't release that to you. So national security has been the end-all, the cover-up, and the answer to all requests for openness and honesty in government. And the American people have literally been taken to the cleaners, and it happened and they didn't even know it. And now the national security state is so established and so ensconced and so established that I don't know whether there's much hope for us, Mel. I keep hoping that maybe eventually we can get out of this mess, but it's going to be a while. And I'm sorry to say I'm worried that maybe, as Jefferson said, there may be some blood in the streets before it's over.
And we're going to be talking about this, and I want to talk to you in a few minutes about the forced vaccinations that we keep hearing in the alternative news. But speaking of Richard Dolan, he was with me a few months ago, and he's going to be back in the next few weeks to discuss the new publication. They are, as Mr. Dean says, they are formidable books. They're great. They have to be in your library. Now, speaking of the Freedom of Information Act, don't you think that a lot of the technology, as Colonel Philip J. Corso said, a lot of the technology lies in the private contractors' hands? If that is the case, what can the Freedom of Information Act do to get that information if it's not in public hands? It's in private hands.
Well, that's the whole point, Mel. You hit on a major issue there. The major problem here is that the entire matter of alien technology, the entire matter of extraterrestrial presence, literally is not in governmental hands anymore. It has literally become a private matter. It's become a corporate matter, and the decisions are being made. The money is being made. The advances of incredibly advanced science are being utilized and benefiting a corporate organization that is multinational in its scope. Eisenhower, bless his heart, before he died, tried to warn us about this. I think he made a speech before he left office. We had to beware of what he called a military-industrial complex. Well, Mel, it's not merely the military and industrial complex. It's military, industrial, and national security complex. And that industrial aspect, that corporate aspect, has become so large that the tremendous advances in science, Ben Rich, before he retired, as he retired, and I think you're familiar with who Ben Rich was.
Yes, sure.
He was the director of the famous skunk works there at Lockheed Martin.
Absolutely.
And Ben Rich said, as he retired, he says, we are a good 100 years beyond establishment science. And he said, we can take E.T. home. When everybody wondered what the hell he was talking about, it was about the time the movie E.T. was out and about. Mm-hmm. And Ben Rich said, we literally have the ability to take E.T. home. Well, that disclosure and other disclosures that I bring up and tell people about in my presentations indicates to me that science, and I'm not talking about the so-called establishment science. I'm talking about the hidden, classified corporate science that exists literally out there. 100 years beyond us, you know, why are you and I still having to go to the gas station and pay $3 a gallon for gasoline?
Beats me.
When they have had free energy for over 40 years. Why do we still get on an airplane, cramming us in like they do, uncomfortably flying us here, there, and everywhere, and taking away all the conveniences of flying because of the cost of jet fuel, when anti-gravity has been known and used by a select few for over 40 years? Well, that's just how damn bad the whole thing has gotten. And I think the American people damn well need to wake up and start paying attention.
It's all economics.
Well, let's be honest. Yeah. Good Lord, it goes back to Roman times, you know. The dollar, the dollar talks. Money is the foundation of this whole big mess.
Yes.
Look how bad it's gotten. For God's sake, what is this man serving 150 years in prison for? Bernie Madoff? My God.
Where's everybody else?
Bernie's problem was nothing but greed. I was discussing this at the last conference over in San Jose. And we were discussing with a bunch of people about this problem with greed. What do you say to a billionaire who has $1 billion and wants more? Good Lord, Mel, that's a sickness.
It is. It's greed.
That man needs to be in the hospital and under psychiatric care. He's got more money than he could spend in his entire life, and he wants more. Good Lord, greed has been with us since what? Since King Midas?
That's right.
That.
By the way, you mentioned Ben Rich, but let's not forget that he also said it will take an act of God to get this information out.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You see, it's all under national security now. And all they have to do is, that comes under national security. You can't have that.
And you mentioned President Eisenhower on his farewell speech. But did you know that he also added on his draft military, industrial, congressional complex? But they alerted him and they told him perhaps that he needed to remove that. I call it military, industrial, congressional, pharmaceutical, penitentiary complex, by the way.
Well, your point is well taken. I agree with you.
Now, during your time in NATO, there were incidents where the Russians thought they were flying over their airspace, that we were flying over their airspace, as well as us thinking they were flying over NATO airspace, which almost made us come too close to World War III. Was this one of the reasons why the Soviet Union and the United States created the so-called direct telephone line, or the 30-minute warning?
Well, the information that I had and the information that I received from sources that I trusted indicated that the establishment of the red phone line was directly a result of the UFO matter. That once the Russians realized it wasn't us, And once we realized it wasn't them, that our guys and their guys got together and they established that direct red phone. And yes, that's the information I've received, that the UFO matter was the primary cause of the direct line between the Soviet president and the American president. And that red phone line still exists, Mel.
Right. Now, we always wonder who the aliens are and where they come from. When we cannot even answer the questions or who we are, where do we come from, and where are we here? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I first began my research, I think a lot of other, like I and a lot of other people, we were primarily interested in them. Who are they? Where are they from? Why are they here? And what's their agenda? And that was my focus for many, many years. And it is still the focus of a lot of researchers. But over the years, Mel, I've expanded my concepts a little bit. And it's dawned on me that the real question is not who are they, where are they from, and why are they here. The real question is who are we?
Correct.
How did we get to be here, and where are we going? And you see, that's why, and that's very clearly, in my view, why this is a matter of the spirit. The spiritual component in this, Mel, is an overriding thing. Is who are we as human beings? Who are we as a species and as a race? How did we get to be here? And where are we going? And
now the word, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The essential question is there a meaning in our lives? And the answer I've come up to is not only yes, but hell yes. There is a meaning in our being here, Mel. The human race, individuals, masses of us, none of this is an accident. None of this just happened. This is not one of those events that just takes place in an evolutionary history of a bunch of animals. This is a spiritual matter. And that's the thing that has kept me going, I think, more than anything else, is that I realize that the implications of this, the ramifications of it, are so vast that it literally involves human spirit. And I've reached a point, my friend, that, you know, I'm not a religious person. I don't go to church. But I think of myself as a deeply spiritual person. And I've grown up quite a bit in the last 25 years. One would say, well, isn't it about time, you old coot? You're going to be 81 on your next birthday. But I have grown some, and I think it's been in the right direction. I've learned to remote view, Mel. I've been spending...
Oh, you have?